Hi there, we are going to do a exercise called creating explicit mate connectors. And so this can be found inside the new to on-shape pathway, on-shape assemblies. And it's found, this exercise is found under section 2. And here it is, it's exercise creating explicit mate connectors. All right, so I'm going to hit the next page arrow to get into the instructions, and the first thing they want me to do is click on this link, creating mate connectors, start. Now I'm going to right click and say open a new tab. For some reason when I tried this before, it closed down this window, and that was not what we needed. All right, so we're going to make a copy to edit. That's the first instruction that they want us to do, and so we'll make that copy. I'm going to own it and make the copy, and here we go. All right, here's my document. Okay, so it says switch to the step stool assembly tab. It's already there. Many of the components are already inserted and mated already. We're focusing on creating these explicit mate connectors, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about why you need to do those as we go along. Okay, step 3 says switch to the base frame bar part studio. So here's the base frame. By the way, these tabs are along the bottom. And there it is. So what they want us to do in slide 4 is to start a new mate connector feature. Now it says pro tip, use Control M to start a mate connector feature. I can't get that to work on mine. I don't know why. It's just not. So, but there's a workaround. The workaround is if you go to that same drop-down menu where plane is, and you scroll down to the bottom, there it is. See, it even says Control M, but for some reason it just does not work on my computer. So I'm going to click that, and here we go. Now, in slide 5, set mate connector to be created between entities. Okay, so what we really want to do, we want to have it lined up with the hole and halfway between these two, the face of these two bars. This is why you need these things, because there is no geometry out here to attach this to. So we need these explicit mate connectors when that's the case. If we were making something that was located right on one of the holes or something like that, we could just make a connector right there. We could literally put the, we wouldn't even have to make a mate. We could just use our oh my goodness, I can't think of the name of them right now. You know, well, they're connectors, right? The fasten and all that fun stuff. The Revolute mates. Well, they're mates. There you go. And, but because this is hanging out there in the middle, we have to use this tool. All right, so in the instructions, it tells me that I need to click on, first of all, it says I need to make it between entities, and I'm going to hover over this spot right there, okay, to get it lined up with that hole. And then I'm going to turn it around, and I'm just going to click this face, and it's going to make it halfway in between and pointing in the direction I want. Select owner entity base frame bar. Now this is important. You'll see on the next step, this is actually quite important. So the base frame bar owns this. You want a part to own this, otherwise it won't show up in the assembly. So I'm going to accept that, and we're going to move on. Now we're going to go to the large frame bar part studio. And it says the whole position sketch is visible. That's also kind of important, because when I go to the large frame bar, I'm going to create another one of these mate connectors on that sketch right there. So I'm going to get my, well, if you notice, once I selected that menu, mate connectors already become the default button. So I'm just going to click that, and I'm going to hover over this spot right here. And if I hover over it right, I've got that mate connector pointing where the blue z-axis is pointing to the right, just like on the other one. I'm going to click that. Now this is important. It selected the sketch as owning this mate connector, but I don't want that. I want the large frame bar to own it. Otherwise, it will not show up in the next step. So I'm going to accept that. And on the next step, it says start. Okay, yeah, we actually skipped past that. And got a little ahead of ourselves. That's all right. Step 9, switch to the step stool assembly. Both mate connectors that were previously created are visible. And let's see if they're right. Oh yeah, there they are. Now what? Step 10, create a revolute mate between the two mate connectors. The mate connectors are aligned in the same direction along their primary axis by default. In other words, the blue is pointing to the right for both of them. Define the rotation value as negative 42.5 for the Z minimum angle and 0 for the Z maximum angle to allow it to rotate clockwise towards the other leg. Okay, so let's try that. We're going to get a revolute mate. We're going to click each of the two. There it is. And it says we're going to create some limits. Okay, so the Z angle, oh, I forget which one. The minimum is negative 42.5. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to type negative 42.5. And for the maximum, it is 0. Okay, and we're going to see what that does for us in a second. I'm going to accept that. And you notice it lined them up. And I think you can also see why it didn't, we didn't create, those things fit into a slot. Just don't know how you would have been able to pull that off with on-entity mates. They don't, it doesn't really touch anything. I'm assuming later they're going to add some bolts into that. But for now, we created this. Now, what's next? Test the assembly stool to ensure the step stool assembly opens and closes as intended. Okay, let's see what happens. So I'm going to zoom out a bit, and I'm going to grab the leg, and look at that. Isn't that cool? Okay, now, if we hadn't put those limits, I would have been able to rotate this mate around 360 degrees, which just wouldn't be natural, right? In the real world, we would expect this thing to do exactly what it's doing right now. This is fully open, this is fully closed. Well, in the virtual world, you can do anything. But to make it realistic, that's why we put the limits down. And now we have this working step stool. And you see the power of Onshape? Can you imagine designing this and not being able to test the motion before you went and built it? It might take several prototypes to get it right. But here we can make a working prototype right on the first try. Okay, and then they want us to do all this verification stuff. Don't bother with that. If you create the mate connectors properly, and when I go in to grade it, I see that I can do this, then guess who's happy? The answer is me, and therefore you. All right, great stuff. Hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next time.